Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 194 for the 7th of July 2012. Richard Saunders with you from the San Francisco Bay Area here in very sunny, very sunny California. In fact, I was watching the news reports tonight and as the US listeners will know, a lot of the country is experiencing quite dramatic heat wave conditions at the moment. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's not too bad, but it's pretty warm nevertheless. On this week's show, our good friend and East Coast US correspondent Travis Roy, up there in New Hampshire, chats to Kitty Mervine, an old friend of mine. Kitty Mervine. I first met Kitty in, I guess it was 2007, on the amazing cruise with James Randi, when we were cruising in Alaska. That was fun. Anyway, Kitty has written a book for children called Fairy Tales Fairly Told. Fairy Tales Fairly Told. Fairy tale book, but a skeptical one. A skeptical one for children. What an interesting idea. We'll find out about that book and a bit more about Kitty coming up at the top of the show. Then after the break, it's Maynard's Spooky Action. Now, he's going to be interviewing Dr. Rebecca Johnson from the Australian Museum all about wildlife crime. Wildlife crime. Yes, those creatures in the wilderness committing all sorts of crimes. Now, not quite like that. This is where very bad people try to use rare animals and plants and things like that and smuggling illegal drugs across borders. It's a very sad story in a way, these poor innocent animals being used to smuggle drugs, but it does happen. But thank goodness there are people like Dr. Rebecca Johnson who help the police in detecting this sort of crime. Find out more with Maynard a little later on in the show, and then Maynard catches up with some people at Skeptics in the Pub. Some new people to Sydney Skeptics in the Pub and ask them why they come along and what interest they have in skepticism. But before we get to all that, some big news. Yes, we have a winner. We have a winner for the religious biblical limerick competition, and the winner will receive the Christ Conundrum book autographed by Andrew Carruth being sent to you, and the winner, as chosen by Stefan, was James Prendergast. Now, here, as read by the judge, Stefan Soika, the co-host of the Skeptic Zone from time to time, here is the winning entry.
There once was a man named Noah who built a great ark for Jehovah. Though when made to spec, its size is suspect, 'cause the mammals alone overflow.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Stefan, and thank you to all those people who send in limericks. We've been having a great time reading some of those. I think we'll probably publish some. And all those limericks that were sent in will be sent to the author of the book, Andrew Carruth, the author of the book, The Christ Conundrum. Thank you to everybody. Such fun to do that. I think we'll do a competition like that again in the not-too-distant future. Now, for those people in the San Francisco Bay Area, I'll be in Berkeley on the 11th, that's Wednesday night, coming up, giving a talk about power balance. Just Google Bay Area Skeptics for more information about that. It would be great to see you there. And thank you to those people who have been writing to me and tweeting and all sorts of things, asking me about my jet lag, because on last week's show, I think I told everybody how I was trying to prepare for jet lag by getting up early for a whole week in Sydney, Australia, to get myself sort of adjusted to this time zone here in the United States. Well, a partial success, I must say. But maybe I was expecting too much. It's 5 or 6 hours, and that really makes a big difference. I think the worst part is lying awake in bed at night, hour after hour, thinking to myself, this is crazy, I should be asleep, this is crazy, I should be asleep. But, you know, it's just one of those things. I think waking up a week early sort of helped a little bit. It's hard to get up in the morning at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock when the alarm clock rings because your body's still sound asleep. Let's face it, folks, jet lag is just not nice. It's unpleasant. But, it's a small price to pay, I guess, to travel around the world. Maybe next time I should take a ship. That's it. Take a ship. A slow boat across the Pacific. As long as it's got internet, I should be all right. Now, this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone, like a few weeks ago, is a little bit on the short side. It's a bit hard to put together everything when you're on the run, on the move, on the travel, on the road, in the air, like I am. I hope you don't mind the slightly shorter Skeptic Zone this week, but don't worry. Don't worry. Coming up, Maynard's going to be running around Las Vegas. I'm going to be spending a lot of time keeping him out of trouble. I'm going to have a serious think about that. While I'm doing that, I'm going to run upstairs. Going to run upstairs this time because I'm in a cellar at the moment, in a basement. I'm going to run upstairs, grab that lovely American root beer out of the fridge while we all enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Kitty Mervine is an artist, skeptic and teacher. Her latest project for Camp Inquiry is a children's book called Fairy Tales, Fairly Told, with a foreword by James Randi. Our East Coast USA correspondent Travis Roy sat down with Kitty and asked her why she wrote such a book.
Hi, this is Travis Roy reporting from Antrim, New Hampshire on lovely... What lake is this?
Lake Franklin Pierce.
I guess it's the impromptu Granite State Skeptics Skeptic Camp.
Yes, it is. My husband and I, a couple of years ago, bought a sort of rundown, what we refer to in New England as a camp. It's really a cabin. And this has sort of been the scene of many a skeptic get-together. So we've sort of dubbed it the official summer camp headquarters for crazy skeptic parties.
And they're quite the parties they are.
I'd say so. And Travis and I, during the summer, we're neighbors because you live on Emerald Lake, which is the next town over. And in the summer, I live on Lake Franklin Pierce. And we don't fight too much about which is the best lake because, of course, Lake Franklin Pierce is the best lake. But your lake's okay.
Yeah, our lake is very small, so that's what we have. So the reason I wanted to talk to you today, you have a new book that's coming out, or has come out, that you'll have at TAM.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Okay, this is my second children's skeptic storybook. It's written for ages 3 to 10, but I think that adults can also enjoy it. And the main purpose is really just to fill a gap that I felt was there for passing on our skeptic morals and beliefs to our youngest children. That a lot of people don't think that you should start talking to your child about what it means to be an atheist or what it means to be a critical thinker until they're, teenagers. And the time to start skeptical education, my belief, is from birth.
So the book seems to be a lot of stories that people might be familiar with that are kind of reworked a little bit. Is that true?
Yes. The name of the book is Fairy Tales Fairly Told. And it's a reworking of a lot of fairy tales that we've all grown up with, but I think with a skeptic twist on the end of them. The Fairly Told is sort of, often the big bad wolf turns out to be kind of a nice wolf and someone we can get along with, that sort of thing. And some of the stories are a little controversial, probably for the average family. This is really a book focused for skeptic and atheist parents only. So I would be careful if you buy the book and give it to your fundy nephew or niece, because then the family may not be speaking to you for a little bit.
The other thing was the purpose of the book was for Camp Inquiry, right?
Yes, I was very lucky that Camp Inquiry asked for copies of the first book, Ziggy and Lisa Skeptic Friends, which are about a Swedish dog and cat that actually do exist and actually are best friends. And they have little skeptic adventures. And that book is 100% safe for you to indoctrinate secretly any nieces or nephews. Much safer than fairy tales fairly told. And I gave them copies of the book, and I was amazed that I got letters and emails, and people would come up to me at skeptic meetings and say how much they enjoyed the book and their children enjoyed the book. And, hey, what was I doing for Camp Inquiry next year? And I hadn't really thought about writing a second book. But I thought, well, if this obviously is a need that needs to be filled, and so I decided to take classic fairy tales, give them a little bit of twist, and it really turns out to be a lot of fun.
Great. So, like I said, you're going to be bringing some of the books to TAM, a very limited number, right?
Yes.
And after TAM, where would people be able to get the book?
Right now, you can email me at fairlytold@gmail.com, and hopefully soon it will be available on Amazon for sale. And it should be noted that all profits from both my skeptic books go to Skeptic Children's Education. I don't make anything at it. This year, I've trying to pay $1 a book to my really wonderful illustrator who did an incredible job with illustrations in the book. His name's Noah Whippy, and he's a young man. He has sight problems, so he can't drive. And so for him to do a drawing, it really takes him a long time, but the results are truly remarkable, and everyone especially loves the Scottish otters that he drew for my story about these Scottish otters that like to pretend that they're a lake monster. And I guess you can guess what lake that they live on.
The cover is also quite amazing. It seems to be some type of wizard that looks oddly familiar.
Yes, it's an oddly familiar, very tall James Randi. Noah Whippy has never met James Randi in person, and he's a big fan of Randi. And I think the number one thing that people say when they meet Randi is, oh, he's shorter than I thought. And then once you start talking to him and get to know him, he becomes his usual 6'5", 6'10", I don't know, self. So since Noah has only seen Randi on TV and in photographs, he drew Randi looking like maybe in his younger years he could have played basketball. The joke is that it's either a very tall Randi or those are very, very, very small children standing around him listening to the story. But Randi fully approved of it, and I think got a kick out of seeing how he would look if he were really tall.
I'm sure. So so there's also an introduction by Randi?
Yes, Randi very kindly agreed to do an introduction to the book. He had a lot of input and influence on this entire book. I would often send him down stories and say, what do you think? Do you think this is okay? And, get his reassurance. And so I was actually down to visit him in Florida on my birthday, and Randi sort of surprised me by cooking me lunch and having a birthday cake. So while he was in a good mood, I decided I'd hit him up and say, hey, would you write the forward to the book? And he didn't hesitate and said sure. And the amazing part about, of course, the amazing Randi is he had it to me within 48 hours. And it's a really, wonderful gift that he's given me by writing the introduction. I'd also like to say that one of the stories in the book that was extraordinarily difficult for me to write was the story with the atheist theme and the atheist hero. And I have to confess, I'm not an atheist. So I felt very presumptive and, should I really write a story about atheists when I'm not an atheist myself? And I wanted to put that in there because I don't think any skeptic book for young children would be complete without atheists. And I wrote to Randy and I said, can I do this? What do you think? If you think I'm out of line, just tell me. And he was like, go for it. Do it. Don't worry about what anybody says, So I wrote it and sent it down to him, and he was like, great. So that really gave me sort of the courage to write this story and include it in there. And if anyone has any problems, and I'm not an atheist, I should say I really wrote it for my own children, who are very, very slow about giving me grandchildren. But I know when they do give me grandchildren, and they better, they will be raised as atheists. And I wanted them to have a story from their grandmother that said, hey, I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm perfectly fine that you're an atheist, and here's the story for you.
Thank you to Travis Roy and thank you to Kitty Mervine. Now you can meet Kitty at the amazing meeting in Las Vegas coming up next week. And to find out more about Kitty and her books, you can visit badalien.org.
The Hansard is a podcast of the monthly lectures run by Canberra Skeptics Incorporated. Each month, Canberra Skeptics provides experts in their field, ranging from science and philosophy to politics and national security, with an opportunity to present their views. You can find us at www.canberraskeptics.org.au. The Hansard, Canberra Skeptics' Record of Reason.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, let me tell you, I've just been watching about the wildlife forensic here, a wonderful talk presented at Skeptics in the Pub. And let me tell you, I'm going back to smuggling drugs now after seeing this. If you want to put a squirrel in your pants, these people are going to catch you. Who have we got here and who do you represent?
My name is Dr. Rebecca Johnson and I am the manager of the Wildlife Genetics and Microscopy Unit at the Australian Museum.
And what's been the biggest case you've been involved with?
That's a really difficult question to answer. We've been involved in so many and they range from insects to snakes to domestic animals to cockatoos, parrots. They're always different and they're always a new challenge.
Now, are you an animal lover that gets quite upset when they see these animals sometimes still alive, shoved into confined spaces and that kind of thing? Is that a problem for you as well? Or do you have to put that to one side and put the scientific bonnet on because they often have to kill these animals, don't they?
One of the side effects people perhaps don't consider is that often these animals are euthanized at the border. So most of the time we don't see them in the state that they're apprehended. And it's not really my job to pass judgment. It's my job to investigate the facts in these kind of cases, and the judgment happens later.
And look, and often there's organised crime involved. So does that mean you've got to be a bit cloak and dagger about this? It's all very secret until the court's over.
We treat it like a proper court case where we don't talk about it until it's gone to prosecution, until there's been sentencing, because I don't want to be in a position where I have potentially compromised the facts of a case by talking about them before it's finished.
And look, now what was the go with the guy who was claiming to have had a squirrel in his socks and he didn't know? I mean, look, a squirrel anywhere on your body, in any body part, you're going to notice it.
These were a pretty important pair of socks because he sent them in a courier parcel. I don't know how. I don't treat my socks with such respect. I don't even think I'd post them. I certainly wouldn't courier them.
Yeah, you'd be more likely to throw them away than mail them back to Australia.
That would be more likely, yeah, definitely.
And also, the penalties don't seem to be that great, considering how much you can get for some of these animals overseas. That the people don't go for much of a fine.
The fines are. It's a very unusual crime. and the courts don't see a huge amount of it. So there are penalties available, and they are increasingly being applied.
And when you think about it, a lot of the animals are worth quite a bit, as some illegal drugs are. So, you think that the penalties will be applied there. Is it because there just aren't many crimes like that, full stop? That's the reason why they don't have a larger penalty?
They probably are. If you're going to court day after day and you're looking at drug smuggling and you're looking at weapon smuggling, perhaps wildlife is something a little bit different, and perhaps people need to know a little bit about science and how these things can affect biodiversity. Taking an endangered animal out of the wild actually has a huge effect.
Biodiversity of biodiversity. How is it actually? Is it like Tay on the end?
We're not very biodiversity.
Okay, right. Okay, sorry. I just thought I'd check that there. Yeah. And actually, now what is the? Because biodiversity. So what? There's less animals around. That's the way evolution happens naturally. But what is the? What's the consequence of less biodiversity?
It's worth thinking about biodiversity as a big, long chain. And yes, of course, things naturally do go extinct. But that's naturally. That's not from removing all of the sharks from the sea, who have a really important role. They eat other fish, who eat other fish, who eat other invertebrates, and they're all part of this long food chain. And if you remove one of those really important parts of the chain kind of abruptly, that is not natural evolution, and that is disrupting biodiversity.
And what has been the most difficult case that you've been involved in, the one that's taken the longest and you really had to hit the books?
That's a really tough question. We pretty much have to hit the books for every case. Okay. If it's a reptile, we have to go and figure out what do we know about that? Has something been published in the literature? Do we have things in the museum collection that will be useful for that case? Do we need to develop new markers? Because we deal with so many different species. We're not like human forensics who get to work really hard on one species.
Yeah. So would you reckon maybe human forensics is a bit easy then, really, because they're just dealing with one species. It's like only dealing with one element on the periodic table. And that would be the element of surprise, my favourite.
I'm not going to get involved in forensic wars here.
Actually, is there a pecking order in forensic science? When you turn up to do a bit of forensic work on the cat, do the people from CSI go, oh, yeah, sure, cat, that sort of thing? I mean, does that really happen? Like in hospitals, I know, the thoracic surgeons probably look down on the dermatologists and the neurosurgeons look down on the thoracic surgeons.
At forensic conferences, we always have the most interesting stories, I think.
But you're the one they want to talk to at the bar because they're all used to talking about human DNA. Yeah.
That's correct.
What do you think is the challenge for the Australian Museum? I've been lucky enough to speak to people there about paw prints that people have claimed to have been, there's a big leopard in our area. It turns out to be a dog.
I don't, probably not a challenge, but I think it's just always really worth remembering that we do science there. We do this kind of research that allows us to do forensics. We describe new species, we look at how they relate to other species, and that's exactly what you do if you're asked to identify an unknown gallbladder. What do? You sequence it, or you look at it and you slot it into a tree because you know a lot about other animals that it's suspected to be.
And where can people go online and see what you guys get up to?
The museum has a fabulous website. You can always come into Sydney and pop in and see us at the museum. We're open every day except Christmas Day. Or we also have a Facebook page, and we have a few quite celebrity characters. One's called Mr. Blobby, and he's a fish.
Cool.
And he's on Facebook all the time, and people ask him questions. They ask him to identify other fish. Oh. And so that's a pretty neat way of asking questions too.
Oh. In fact, a few of there's been a couple of celebrity animals getting around. There's actually Snaffs the elephant from the zoo has a Twitter account. He's quite popular.
We have a gecko who has a Twitter account as well. He has a Facebook page. He's an Indigenous gecko, so he Twitters or he Facebooks a lot about NAIDOC Week and other Indigenous issues that are happening around. Because of the museum, we obviously have a rather large cultural aspect to what we do. And so I think we're pretty well rounded. We're not huge, but we do a lot of good things.
Okay, and one last question: what's your favourite exhibit at the Australian Museum? When you walk past it, you go, "Man, that's hot."
I've got such a soft spot for Eric the plesiosaur. He's an opalized dinosaur, so he's he's not only he's a dinosaur, but he's opal, and so he's beautiful, and he's quite small. So he fits into the size of a suitcase basically, and he's real, and so you can see him. He's very valuable, and he's pretty special.
I can assure you, when I leave the country, as I will be in the next few days, and hopefully I'll be allowed back, I will be taking absolutely no wildlife on my person. I've completely abandoned that idea after seeing you here tonight.
I am very, very pleased to hear that.
Well, we're here with some first-timers here at the Skeptics at the Pub. Who we got?
I'm Paul.
And Hazel.
And now, why'd you come along? Why'd you decide, okay, I want to get a bit sceptical on a cold, wintry Thursday night in Sydney?
We're long-time skeptic, and we have been talking about coming for a long time, always listen to the podcasts. We just kind of said, we've been wanting to do this for long enough, let's just do it. So, we just did it.
As everyone says, okay, what are you sceptical about? Oh, okay. No. Well, okay, I'll phrase that in a different way. Everyone's got their own bit of woo that always gets them going. Well, what's the woo that really stirs you right up?
Well, what really stirs me up is psychics bringing messages from beyond the grave. It really upsets me. Only this week there was an article in our local newspaper about a family who'd been spoken to via a skeptic from beyond the grave, and I just think it's heartbreaking for people. That's what really gets me.
And they were believing what they were being told?
They were, and I know, like, when you're grieving, you want to believe and hope that you're getting a message, but I just think it's horrible exploitation.
I've mentioned this a couple of times on the show, and it would completely change the fabric of our society if we could regularly and often, whenever we wanted, communicate with everyone that had ever died, let alone just your grandparents. I mean, imagine having to communicate with all those people. Sometimes it can be kind of annoying when your parents are ringing all the time and that kind of thing. Imagine what it would be like if everyone that had ever been alive could contact you and you could contact them. You probably wouldn't get anything else done but talking to the dead.
There'd be so many people to talk to, absolutely.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to advance physics because you could just keep asking Einstein to refine what he'd done.
The question is, do you think they'd want to talk to us after they'd passed on?
Yeah. Well, they probably all deserve a really good rest, a lot of them. I mean, I'm sure they'd love to talk to us and tell us how much they love us, but what's wrong with a good rest?
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
What do you make of the crowd here? Is it what you expected?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a great crowd. Everyone's very friendly.
My jumper's not too loud?
It's a bit loud, but it's okay.
Do you think you'll be back?
Definitely, yes. It's been a great night.
And what's the word that gets you, by the way?
Psychics are a big one for me, but I'm also get very angry about things like homeopathy and naturopathy and that kind of quack medical sort of stuff.
And how do you go in the office, like where you've got to be polite with people, you've got to work with them? Are you good at keeping at taking the big glass of shut up juice?
I do. I try to take some pages out of Jay Novella's book, I think, on that. Mm-hmm. On that, but I definitely do get a lot of woo around my office. A lot of people are interested in naturopathy, and we often see on the notice board at work people are spruiking this stuff. I
still enjoy astrology, and I'm a little bit on board with it because it's kind of a fun thing. To me, anyway. What do you think? How do you go around the office?
I just think to myself, don't cause any fights, keep your mouth shut. But as long as it's harmless, it's okay, I think. But if it was something like someone said, I've stopped going to my doctor because I think I can eat this 4-leaf clover, then maybe I might think about saying something.
I'll see you here next month.
Definitely. Nice talking to you, mate.
In a world where the truth is a matter of opinion, where messages are received from beyond the grave, and reason is sidelined for magical thinking, only 3 men stand between the truth and a postmodernist abyss.
What date is it? 7th, 8th? 7th, 8th?
This is impressive. These artist impressions.
They're not. They're photographs of Chinese lanterns.
It's not.
We are not well researched.
Yeah, because...
Good God, we're full of
We don't discuss cryptozoology on this show very often, because we don't know anything about it.
That's true, that is true. The price gets lower and lower and lower, and then he hits a ceiling?
It's a ceiling from the room below.
Skeptics with a K from the Merseyside Skeptic Society. Find us on iTunes. Or, don't.
The Dirty Disbelievers, Episode 9.
Dirty Disbelievers.
Don't harsh my mellow, man. Yes, Dr. H and Richard Saunders attend a New Age fair, and rude words fly. Did you know that being called clever is not always a good thing? The Dirty Disbelievers 9 at dirtydisbelievers.com, Maynard.com.au, and where all good conspiracies are sold.
Dirty Disbelievers.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, let me have a look at my clock now. Oh, as I'm recording this, it's coming up to 9 p.m. Maybe I'll even be asleep by midnight. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, I might just do that. All those people coming to the amazing meeting in Las Vegas, please say hello to me and Dr. Raichi and Iran Sergeyev and Maynard from the Skeptic Zone, and our editor of the Skeptic magazine, Tim Mendham, will be there also. Lots of people from Australia besides us, of course, running around. Can't wait to catch up with all my friends. It's going to be a great time. And for all you people who can't make TAM, and of course that will be many of you, I hope in the coming weeks we can give you a flavour, a sense of what it's all about. Certainly lots of interviews and lots of fun. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from the San Francisco Bay Area.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.